As we learned in chapter 957, a major incident occurred 38 years ago on God Valley. An incident that ended up pitting the Rox Pirates, the strongest pirate group to exist, against Garp and the Roger Pirates. And an incident that resulted in it being wiped from the history books so that no one would ever know what happened. Today we're going to talk about the God Valley incident. We're going to talk about what could have happened there and how did that fight end the way that it did. Now, the key factor to understanding the God Valley incident is to take a deeper look into Rox D. Xebec. We know that Xebec was noted for looking into the taboo subjects of the world, and that usually means Void Sentry and ancient weapons. Rox wanted to be king of the world, and that means he needed the power to do so. When you put his intentions and goals together, it seems like he attacked God Valley for the purpose of getting closer to that goal. And a few things that support that claim kind of follow as what we learned from Sengoku. The world government took effort and time to not only hide the existence of Rox, but the existence of God Island from the general public. We have to think about why the world government would want to hide such a thing. You know, pirates are commonplace, celestials and slaves are commonplace, so those aren't things that they would try to cover up. However, for the entire incident to be hidden means that there's a lot more to it. And then you take a look at some of the members who were there. Big Mom and Kaido, for example. Their goal now is to gather the ancient weapons and rule the world. That sounds very similar to what Rox was trying to do. And Akainu and Fujitora even talk about the second coming of Rox. It would not be surprising if Kaido and Big Mom got this idea from following Rox and his idea. Even the Marines aren't informed of God Valley, and they really only start to get more involved when Kaido and Big Mom start to make their move. So I think that does a lot to say that what Big Mom and Kaido are about to do is very similar to what Rox was about to do, in saying that Rox's goal was to gather the ancient weapons and go for world domination. That's what Big Mom and Kaido want right now, and that's where they're headed. And I also want to point out that whatever Rox was doing at God Valley was a big enough threat that Garp and Roger teamed up to stop him. Even with the friendly rivalry that they have, that seems like something they wouldn't do. Garp, for one, already hates the Celestials and, the fact that they have slaves, but now he's working with the pirates in order to take down another pirate. That's not Garp's character. And then there's Roger. Why would Roger even bother to stick his hands in something that has to deal with the world government and them potentially losing power? Potentially, whatever Rox was going to do was going to be bad for the entirety of the world, meaning that if he actually got his hands on, say, ancient weapons, he would be a threat to everyone's existence in the world. Enough so that Roger and Garp felt the need to work together to stop him. All of this points to Rox getting close to ancient weapons. Rox getting very close to that world domination power that he so craved. I think there is a debate that can be had about whether there were actually ancient weapons on God Valley or whether it was just the knowledge of ancient weapons that drew Rox in. Either way, it was enough to give him that edge that he needed. I also think that the knowledge that was contained in God Valley is part of the motivation for Roger completing his journey. We know that Roger eventually sails the entirety of the world. He eventually finds the treasure that was left behind and learns the secrets of the world. We also know that at some point in Fishman Island, they were having a discussion about what they were looking for. And I believe Rayleigh mentions to King Neptune that they aren't looking for the weapons, but they're more of looking for the treasure left behind by the creator. So they have some knowledge of ancient weapons and they're looking more into that, but they still don't have the exact whereabouts or details. Is it possible that Rox in some way gathered enough information to kind of bypass the need to capture all the poneglyphs or go to Raftel to kind of skip past, take a shortcut and just go straight to the source of the ancient weapons? If Roger had any inkling about what was to happen, then I feel like it makes enough sense for him to want to step in. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the fight that took place once everyone came together. Now, the result of the fight is Garp and Roger standing on top with Rox presumably dead. It would seem that Rox was the only fatality of this fight, considering most of the big name pirates that are part of his crew are still seen in the world today. So how did that happen? How did Rocks end up perishing while so many others got to go on and continue to be pirates? Well, first, let's take a look at each side and see who had who stacked up. On the Marine Pirate Alliance side, you have Monkey D. Garp, Goldie Roger, Silvers Rayleigh, Scopper, and essentially the following Marines and Roger pirates. Now, there may be other notable names in that selection, but those are the ones that we have at least some inkling of them being very powerful fighters. On the Rocks Pirates, we have Roxy Xebec, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, Captain John, and a few following other big name pirates who also have a steady name for themselves. Now, if I'm looking at this on paper, just straight up, I say Rocks' side wins. And the reason I say that is because of one simple factor, and that is Whitebeard. I consider Whitebeard the biggest deciding factor in this entire fight, and with credible reasons as to why. We know that Whitebeard was noted as the strongest man in the world even before Roger's era, and before Roger's era it was Rocks' era. So at this point in time, he should either be at his prime or very close to it. That being said, we know Roger and Whitebeard stand together in strength, so while they may have a matchup, we still have a lot of other notable characters that need matchups. Even if you were to pit Garp against Rocks and then Rayleigh with, say, Big Mom or Kaido, you still have other big names on the Rocks Pirates that I think make the balance very uneven. So even with this overwhelming force, how did they end up losing? Again, we take a look at Whitebeard. Now, we know that Whitebeard was never a materialistic person. He didn't care about treasure. He didn't care about fame. He only cared about having a family. That was his treasure. That was his goal, was to make a family. We also know that Whitebeard had great respect for Roger and for Garp. So is it possible that seeing these two here, he decided to change sides? The Whitebeard we know would not let the world fall into utter chaos for one man's dream and goal. Even being a pirate, he was one of the more morally conscious pirates. Therefore, him turning on the Rocks, which was already a thing to begin with, does not seem unlikely. And if Whitebeard fights alongside Roger and Garp, that then gives that overwhelming power advantage to Roger and Garp. Whatever side Whitebeard is on has the combat advantage. And something we can look at that might allude to something like this happening are words from Kaido himself. He mentions that pirate alliances always end in betrayal. The immediate question is this something that he has experienced firsthand? Is it possible that Kaido suffered a crushing defeat once Whitebeard switched sides, and that's the reason that he has this ideal of pirate alliances? And could that be the reason Big Mom gave Kaido this fruit to save him? Could it be because Whitebeard switched sides and dealt a heavy blow to the Rocks Pirates? Also, as a side note, how did Big Mom get that fruit? Is it possible that it came from God Valley itself? Be sure to check out my Devil Fruit origin theory video for more ideas on that. And to bring up another mention of Whitebeard and Kaido, we see that Whitebeard is in one of the few people mentioned that can fight Kaido. And if Kaido has this idea, that means he's fought him before, and this could have been that time. It's also interesting to think about all the people that seem to have escaped, because we know that for the most part, Rocks was the only one who perished here. Every other Rocks pirate member seems to have gone on and done their own thing. One could say that once Rocks was brought down, the rest of the crew lost the will to fight. Not only because they lost their captain, but they were now facing down Garp, Roger, and Whitebeard. At that time, those three would probably be the strongest people in the verse. I could easily see the remnants of the Rocks crew deciding it wasn't worth it and stepping out. And what that means is that with Rocks gone and the crew disbanded, God Valley and the incident fell into obscurity. The pirates who lived through it don't want to talk about it because, one, they already hated the crew they were on, and 2, they probably suffered a crazy defeat, so that's not a story they're going to tell. The world government obviously doesn't want the public to know because of the possibility of ancient weapons and Void Century information, so they're also going to cover it up. Even going as far as keeping Marines from figuring out, just to make sure that the information about Got Valley never makes it to light. What I suspect is that with the second coming of Rox in Kaido and Big Mom, we're going to see a lot more light on the Got Valley incident. We're going to see more from both ends, from what happened on the Rox side, what happened on the Garp and Rogers side, and what exactly was covered up. But yes, those are my thoughts on the Got Valley incident. Please let me know if you have your own theories or ideas. If you like this one, please feel free to drop a like, feel free to comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.